Hey, TikTok, Dave Silliman here with Easy OZ. Just kind of talking opportunity zones again, breaking down opportunity zone myths. And the first myth that I want to talk about related to the opportunity zone program is that, oh, this is just a program that is very easy and you can just go to your CPA, fill out a couple tax forms, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and you're golden. Okay, now, if that were truly the case, we would have seen two things. Number one, we would not see a need for 1,000 pages of collective guidance on the integration and utilization of the Opportunity Zone program. Number two, we would not have seen a vast majority of Opportunity Zone funds and fund managers receive letters for non-compliance this past year from the IRS. So let's kind of break down really what is and what is not, and really kind of where the compliance is going to be at with the Opportunity Zone program. So you have compliance that is kind of unique with this because you have different entities and compliance resides in different facets within those different entities. So we got number one, the investor. Now, compliance for them is holding their qualified investment into a fund for, a calendar period of time. So they've got a deferred basis and then a full step up at 10 years, 1 day and beyond. So, but they've got to maintain their position in the Opportunity Zone Fund. They also have a time frame on how long they have to decide from the date they've realized the capital gain to actually invest into the fund. Now, as an investor, part of my compliance is I've got to fill out an 8997 tax form. Okay, and I do that at the end of the year when I file my taxes, signifying that I've rolled or invested capital gains into a qualified Opportunity Zone fund. Okay, next up is we have fund compliance itself. Now, the fund compliance is contingent upon what the money is actually invested into. So the underlying qualifying asset, qualifying investment in an Opportunity Zone, compliance is what keeps the fund compliant to the IRS, which then, by the fund being compliant to the IRS, then means that as the investor, I get to reap those benefits. Now, if the fund breaks compliance because of the qualifying investment breaking compliance, then that means that my investment being deferred and also my tax-free growth could completely be in jeopardy as an investor into the fund. So you can kind of see how 1, 2, and 3 are going to be connected together. Okay. The fund has got initial paperwork that it has to fill out, an 8949 form with an electing start date as a fund, and then also it's got to biannually report an 8996 to the IRS, indicating who invested into the fund, which should match my 8997 form, but then also what the fund invested into being an eligible investment for the Opportunity Zone program. All right. Now, again, the fund's compliance is going to be contingent upon the 90-10 rule, number one. So 90% of the net investment into an Opportunity Zone fund being reinvested into an eligible investment into an Opportunity Zone. So you got the 90-10 rule, number one. But then number two, it's the investment being maintaining its eligibility, which keeps it a good investment for the sake of the fund. So now we got the qualifying investment. Now, depending on whether the qualifying investment is real estate or whether it's a physical business that's producing a product or a service, we have different qualifying criteria. We have, for real estate, we have original use, we have substantial improvement, and we have safe harbor timeframes and categorical expenses within the safe harbor provisions that deal must meet. Okay. For business, we have a completely different set of qualifying safe harbor provisions with a completely different set of time parameters, different set related to expenses, to assets, to employees, to hours worked, to payroll, to non-qualifying financial income. So we have completely different qualifying criterias depending on what the money is being invested into. Now, The safe harbor provides a period of time for that asset to get itself eligible. But then it must maintain its eligibility for the duration the fund is invested into that asset. So for real estate, what does that mean? That means that, okay, you have, from a fund, you have 180 days to invest, identify and or invest into a qualifying investment into an opportunity zone. If you do not invest, but you've identified, then you need to have a written working capital safe harbor plan on file at the fund level. The working capital safe harbor plan is what gives the asset, the eligible asset, a window of time to become compliant. Now, for real estate, it's an extra 31 months. So you have a grand total of 37 months. Now, you have 37 months to get compliant, which is usually, think of, let's say, a development. That's going to be about your waterfall to getting the project done. But then as long as the fund is an equity partner in that, it still has to then maintain compliance until the fund is no longer an equity position holder of that asset. So until that asset leverages itself. So compliance is going to be critical from the asset or the eligible asset that the money is going into. The unique thing is the asset does not report, though, to the IRS for the sake of the Opportunity Zone program. Only the fund does, and only the investor does, meaning the individual investor with capital gains. So compliance, sorry, got distracted by a phone call, but so compliance, as you can kind of see, it's something that, number one, it's very intricate because you have, again, real estate versus business and then different sets of compliance, safe harbor provisions, etc. You've got 1,000 pages of documentation broken up over two tranches. One tranche that identified primarily real estate, one tranche that identified primarily business utilization. You have 1,000 pages collectively. This is not something that is just as simple as, oh, I filled out a basic tax form that said that I'm an Opportunity Zone fund or that I'm an Opportunity Zone investor. As an investor, you get no benefits if you circumvent the fund, so it has to go into the fund. The fund has to be structured the right way. It needs certain legal documentation as per the IRC 1400 Z2 statute to be in its operational agreements, whether it's its bylaws or its operating agreements. It needs to be identifying itself as an Opportunity Zone fund. Also, with Opportunity Zone funds, keep in mind that depending on whether your fund is raising additional money from investors that you may or may not know, you may have a whole nother set of compliance related to the SEC and regulation offerings and basically private equity capital raising. So, and that's going to be related to the type of investors, how much, how you can market. So depending on what the fund is doing, you may have a series of compliances. You may have federal compliance with the IRS, federal compliance with the SEC. You're going to have state compliance because you're a registered state entity. You may have city compliance because you're going to be, quote, a local business as well. So all of that, not to mention then investor reporting if you're an open fund as well on top of that, meaning how your fund is reporting to investors and investor onboarding, KYC, AML. So there's a lot to this. Can anybody do it? Absolutely. 100% you can. If you'd like to learn about Opportunity Zones and everything, the ins and outs, we've put together the Certified Opportunity Zone Advisor program, COZA. Check it out, ozadvisor.com. That's ozadvisor, ADVISOR.com, to learn all about Opportunity Zones. Get started today, 100% online, self-study, open book, get certified today.